In my previous life, I had the incredible luck of winning 5 million yuan in the lottery. However, I spent 4.99 million treating my boyfriend's sudden illness. Once he recovered, he bought a plane ticket and eloped with his true love. After facing life and death, I realized that she is the one I truly love. Refusing to give up, I purchased a ticket to chase after him, only to be humiliated by both of them. As I boarded my flight back home, a plane crash occurred, and to my shock, I found myself reborn. This time, I woke up 2 days before I won the lottery. Chapter 1. Baby, wake up! Wake up! I jolted awake, my boyfriend's slightly anxious face coming into focus. Seeing me open my eyes, Louis let out a relieved sigh and gently wiped the sweat from my forehead. Baby, did you have a nightmare? Let me get you a glass of water. I scanned the room, feeling a mix of familiarity and strangeness. This was my home? Hadn't I died? I vaguely recalled perishing in a plane crash, the pain still lingering in my body, the despair still vivid. How was I back here? Was this a dream? If so, it felt far too real, so immersive that I still felt shaken even after waking. Louis handed me a glass of water. He seemed like the perfect caring boyfriend, yet as he leaned closer, an inexplicable urge to slap him surged within me. I remembered winning 5 million yuan in the lottery. As soon as I received the money, Louis suddenly fell ill. Without hesitation, I poured all my winnings into his treatment. Once he recovered, he bought a plane ticket and eloped with his true love. Before leaving, he told me, "Facing life and death made me realize that she is the one I truly love." Unwilling to accept this betrayal, I pursued him, demanding an explanation, only to be humiliated. On the flight back, I wept uncontrollably, and then the plane encountered severe turbulence and was struck by lightning. After that, I felt excruciating pain and remembered nothing more. As these fragmented memories flooded back, my head throbbed. My body's memories insisted that this wasn't a dream, I had been reborn. Baby, are you still feeling unwell? Louis asked, gently stroking my forehead, concern etched on his face. Not really, I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. Once he left the room, I immediately checked my phone's calendar. Today was September 13th, just 2 days before my birthday. Birthday? I recalled that in my previous life, I bought 2 lottery tickets on my birthday, and against all odds, I won 5 million yuan. Suddenly, an idea struck me, and I quickly opened my chat with my best friend. Are you planning to give me a necklace for my birthday? Oh my god, are you a mind reader? How did you know? I was planning to surprise you. In my previous life, my best friend had given me a necklace I had long coveted for my birthday. This was lining up perfectly. If I remembered correctly, tomorrow Louis would suggest a birthday outing for me, but my company would then require me to work overtime over the weekend, ruining our plans. Feeling lucky on my birthday, I bought 2 lottery tickets after work, unexpectedly winning the 5 million jackpot. Not only had I been reborn, but I had come back 2 days before winning the lottery. Baby, it's your birthday tomorrow. Let me take you out to relax. You've been so stressed lately. Early the next morning, Louis brought up the outing, his words echoing my previous life's events verbatim. Sure, I agreed, eagerly anticipating the company's overtime notification. Ding dong. Urgent notice, tech department staff required to work overtime tomorrow. The message arrived just as I had expected. I read it several times to ensure it was exactly the same. So far, everything was unfolding as it had in my previous life. Perhaps the universe took pity on me for my tragic fate, granting me a second chance. This time, I wouldn't let him off the hook. Baby? Louis waved his hand in front of my face, pulling me back to the present. Sorry, baby, but I have to work overtime tomorrow. Why don't you go by yourself? I showed him the company's message, feigning helplessness. Don't think I don't know. Last time, he took his true love, Sarah, out for a sweet day when I couldn't go. I discovered it through her social media post boasting about their outing. With the one you love, everything is enjoyable. The picture showed their backs at an art exhibition, perfectly matched. I hadn't recognized Louis then. "All right." Louis replied, disappointment evident in his voice, though I caught the slight smile he couldn't suppress as he turned away. That night, I told my company I wanted a promotion and a raise. This dead-end job forced me to work endlessly for a pittance. In my previous life, I endured it just to stay close to Louis, thinking we could go home together after work. I should have quit ages ago. A promotion and a raise. Dream on. If you can't handle it, leave. Fine. I've been wanting to quit for ages. I slammed my hands on the table and stormed out. My attitude left my obnoxious boss fuming. He likely never imagined that the usually invisible employee would dare to stand up to him. As I left, I took everything I could from the office, considering it my rightful due. The next day, I walked into the familiar lottery shop at the same time as in my previous life, my heart racing. Even though I was reliving this moment, I wasn't sure if my choices would change the outcome this time around. Chapter 2. Boss, I'd like to buy 2 lottery tickets. Perfect timing. These are the last 2. Which one do you want? My hands trembled as I accepted the tickets, feeling a thrill I had never experienced before while scratching off a ticket. I carefully peeled back the coating, and when I saw the numbers, my heart raced with uncontainable joy. I really won. 5 million. I won 5 million. I fought to suppress my elation, managing to keep a straight face. Learning from my past mistakes, I resolved not to share this news with anyone. In my previous life, I had let my excitement spill over and told the lottery shop owner. The next day, reporters flocked to interview me, and soon everyone knew. That brought a host of problems, with distant relatives suddenly appearing, hoping to cash in on my good fortune. This time, I decided to keep the win to myself. I tucked the ticket away safely in my bag and headed home. When I walked in, I found Louis had prepared a cake and a feast. In my past life, I had been so touched that I immediately shared my winning news with him. We embraced, tears of joy streaming down our faces as we dreamed of our future together. He had assured me he would accompany me through the entire prize-claiming process to protect me from unwanted attention. At the time, I praised his thoughtfulness. Now, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. I had been so naive in my previous life. This time, I wouldn't let him take anything from me. Louis presented himself as the perfect boyfriend, flawless in every way. I once foolishly believed he was my destined partner. If it weren't for the fateful day I stumbled across Sarah's social media, I might still be oblivious to his true colors. A cold smile crept onto my lips. It wasn't yet time to confront him, and letting him off the hook would be a disservice to the memory of my tragic end in my previous life. I dug out the prize-claiming guide I had saved on Jihu, never imagining it would come in handy. After thoroughly studying it, I armed myself with knowledge and set off to claim my prize discreetly. Due to the large sum I had won, the claiming process was somewhat complicated. After preparing all the necessary documents, I made the rounds from the city lottery center to the provincial lottery center, finally sorting everything out. After taxes, I was left with 4 million. As I watched my bank account balance skyrocket, I felt like I might faint from sheer happiness. 4 million. How many years would it take for me to save up that amount? In my previous life, I barely had the chance to savor my winnings before Louis fell ill. The doctor had said his treatment would cost 4.99 million, and after taxes, my prize money of 4 million was woefully inadequate. Seeing my hesitation, Louis's parents fell to their knees, tears streaming down their faces as they begged me to save their son. Susan, as his girlfriend, you wouldn't want him to suffer, would you? Only you can help him. Please, save him. His mother pleaded. My son is still young, he can't die. We know you just won 5 million. You can't let him die. His father added. Their desperate pleas shattered my hesitation, and I handed over all my prize money and savings, while they scrambled to borrow the rest to cover his medical expenses. During his recovery, I quit my job to care for him, learning to make a variety of soups to nourish him. Despite the challenges, I never felt resentful. I only prayed for his recovery, willing to do anything for him. I could outshine any love-struck heroine. But on the day he was discharged, Sarah arrived. Lewis ignored me completely and took her hand. "I'm here to take him home," she declared, dressed in white with her long hair cascading down her back, her smile as sweet as ever. As I locked eyes with her, I noticed her expression, a calm facade masking her disdain, as if she were a victor surveying a defeated opponent. Lewis, still holding her hand, turned to me and said, "Let's break up, Susan. Thank you for your care, but this experience has made me realize who I truly love." With that, he left with Sarah, leaving me in a daze, utterly bewildered. Recalling this moment sent a sharp pang of pain through my heart. I silently vowed that this time, I would not fall into the same trap. This scumbag would pay for his betrayal. Chapter 3. With the newfound wealth, the first thing I did was buy a house for my parents in our hometown. In my previous life, I had not only drained my savings for Lewis's medical treatment but also urged my parents to dip into their retirement funds. I hadn't just deprived them of a comfortable life, I had left them in a vulnerable position. After Lewis and Sarah ran off together, I wandered through life like a ghost, consumed by grief. I took out my frustration on my parents, and despite their pleas, I insisted on flying abroad to find him only to meet my end in a plane crash. As their only child, I could only imagine the depths of their sorrow at losing me. Given a second chance, I was determined to rectify all my past mistakes. "Where did you get the money to buy a house?" My parents stared in disbelief, their mouths agape and their faces filled with concern. "Sweetheart, you didn't do anything illegal, did you? We can't accept any dirty money." I chuckled, explaining that I had won the lottery, but I kept the exact amount to myself. "Just enjoy the house. The money is clean." In our small town, housing prices were reasonable. A few $100,000 could secure a spacious home. Reflecting on my past foolishness spending so much on Lewis's treatment while my parents suffered, I felt utterly ridiculous. I decided to put $2 million in a fixed deposit and donated a portion to various charities. With the means to do good now, I hoped to spread kindness and build some good karma. Caught up in managing my new fortune, I had little time to spare for Lewis. His illness was approaching, and I couldn't wait to see how he was faring. "Baby, why have you been so distant? Where have you been?" Lewis asked during dinner. Seeing him made my stomach churn. I stifled the urge to roll my eyes and forced a smile. "I lost my job and needed some fresh air to clear my head. I had been staying at my best friend's place, only returning occasionally to check if he had fallen ill." "Lewis, I heard Sarah is back." I said this casually, keenly observing his reaction. His hand froze mid-air, and a flicker of unease crossed his face. She's back? What does that have to do with me?" He stammered, guilt etched on his features. Lewis was a year ahead of me in college. He helped me move in and showed me around campus, his demeanor gentlemanly. I had developed a crush on him. I was oblivious to the fact that he had a girlfriend until he brought Sarah to a department outing. Dressed in an elegant dress with long hair cascading down her back, Sarah stood beside Lewis, embodying a perfect couple. Everyone praised them as a match made in heaven while I felt my heart shatter. After that, I buried my feelings deep within, secretly tracking Sarah's social media to glimpse their happiness from afar. Sarah frequently shared her life online, providing me insight into their relationship and why they eventually broke up. It turned out that just before graduation, she had fallen for a wealthy heir and left with him to study abroad. I lost interest in her updates until our paths crossed again during my internship. Coincidentally, we lived just a street apart, and after a chance encounter, we reconnected. By then, my feelings for Lewis had faded, but when he turned on his charming demeanor, I found myself drawn back in. As my thoughts returned to the present, I glanced at Lewis. Without the rose-colored glasses of love, I saw him for who he truly was, ordinary and unremarkable. I couldn't help but wonder why I had once idolized him so much. My best friend had been right all along. I had been hopelessly caught in the throes of infatuation. Chapter 4. I returned to face him with a single purpose: to find evidence of his affair with Sarah. While he was in the shower, I unlocked his phone and logged into his WhatsApp on my computer. Thankfully, he was not particularly cautious, and everything went smoothly. I copied all the files from his computer and accessed his WhatsApp messages. It turned out he had never severed ties with Sarah, even while she was abroad with that wealthy guy. I didn't have time to read everything in detail, so I snapped photos of each page. Once I had everything documented, I restored his phone to its original state and pretended to scroll through mine, keenly observing his reaction. He seemed oblivious, still smiling at his screen, likely chatting with Sarah. I gathered a few things and decided to head to my friend's place. One meal with him was enough, sharing a bed with him was unbearable. I made up an excuse to leave, relieved he didn't press me for details. At my friend's house, we went through all the evidence we had collected. "Is this the guy you pinned for in college?" she teased, pointing to his messages with Sarah. "I don't love her. I've been waiting for you all this time. She's just a distraction," he had texted. "She doesn't compare to you. Don't worry, I'll break up with her soon." His insincere words were endless, almost laughable, claiming to love me while belittling me to another woman. But I no longer cared, his words suited my agenda perfectly. As we organized the evidence, we discovered that Lewis had been buying gifts for Sarah and transferring her money. I even uncovered hotel reservation records linked to them. Additionally, I found a significant contact in his address book, his primary doctor from my previous life, Dr. Charles. But why had he contacted him so soon before his illness was diagnosed? Something felt off, so I asked my friend, who knew a private investigator, to look into the nature of their relationship. Afterward, I checked Sarah's social media. She loved to flaunt her life online, and just a few days ago, she had posted a photo of an expensive necklace and handbag, items I recognized as being in Lewis's shopping cart. "Gift from someone, but just okay," she captioned it. I took screenshots of all the evidence, along with my own accusations, and spent the entire day crafting a 63-page presentation with my friend. Exhausted, I stretched and let out a sigh of relief before heading off to bed. The next day, I announced that I was going back to pack my things, and my friend insisted on coming with me. I figured having an extra set of hands wouldn't hurt. My belongings fit neatly into 2 suitcases, and I threw away everything that reminded me of Lewis. Once I had packed, I waited for him to return. "Sweetheart, why are you back?" he asked, surprise evident in his voice. "This is my home. Can't I come back?" I replied, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He noticed the suitcases and asked, "Where are you going?" "I'm breaking up with you, Lewis," I stated flatly. Saying it felt oddly liberating. I had no emotional turmoil, only impatience. Why should I need to put on a show for him? "I don't agree," he said, taken aback. "What right do you have to disagree?" I retorted, tossing a printed photo of him and Sarah at him. It had been taken from her social media, though just a shot of their backs. I recognized them instantly. "Don't think I'm oblivious to your little affair. But it's fine, I'm done with you. Consider yourself dumped." Lewis stared at me, dumbfounded, unable to reconcile the sweet girlfriend he knew with the woman before him. As I headed for the door, I remembered something important. "Oh, by the way, I bought this house. New tenants are moving in the day after tomorrow. You have 1 day to vacate. I trust you can find a new place easily enough." I brandished the property deed in front of him, relishing the moment. Buying the house just to serve him this justice felt incredibly satisfying. Chapter 5. Renting a place might be easy for him, but not now. Checking his phone, I saw he had little money left, with just a few hundred yuan in WhatsApp and less than 3,000 in his bank account. His parents constantly asked for money, and he spent lavishly on Sarah, draining his savings. When we lived together, I paid most of the rent and bills. He wanted healthy home-cooked meals, so I shopped and cooked daily. Now I saw he contributed little financially or emotionally. "You were amazing. Is this really your house? I thought you faked the deed to fool him." My friend marveled at the deed. I transferred her 8,888 yuans. I got lucky and made some money, so I bought this house. Rich lady, please take care of me. Freeing myself from Louis felt liberating, especially knowing his illness was imminent. But I wanted him to suffer more. I wanted him to be ruined. That night, I created new social media accounts, sharing the 63-page presentation, portraying myself as a victim of betrayal. My words were filled with sorrow, evoking sympathy. Buying ads boosted the post's reach, attracting a flood of supportive comments and stories from others with similar experiences, denouncing cheaters. With my friend's influencer account, the story gained traction, trending online. I didn't hide their social media profiles. Sarah quickly deleted hers, leaving Louis to bear the brunt of the backlash. How dare you hurt such a beautiful woman? You're a disgrace. You're worse than dirt, the lowest form of life. You don't deserve her. You're a parasite, a societal scum. Netizens' creative insults were satisfying to read. Louis bombarded my phone with calls. In this digital age, netizens' investigative skills left him exposed. I blocked all his contacts, but he found a new number to harass me. Susan, what are you doing? Do you know how much you're ruining my life? He yelled when I answered. I laughed. Of course I knew. He had a stable job in a state-owned enterprise and had just become a civil servant. Such scandals could cost him everything. He valued his image, and the public condemnation must be unbearable. If you make a video saying it was all a lie out of love, I'll forgive you. We can start over. I've always loved you. She means nothing to me. He pleaded, hoping to sway me. But I was no longer the foolish girl from my past life. I recorded the call and posted it online, igniting more outrage. The most surprising was Sarah, who opened a TikTok account amid the scandal, labeling herself 63-page PPT heroine. Her odd move puzzled me. Why invite more criticism? But I soon understood. She posted a video downplaying her role, inviting more insults but requiring followers to comment. Her followers quickly grew, monetizing her account. Using her infamy, she sold products in her store, capitalizing on the controversy. I had to admire her audacity and resilience. Chapter 6. It soon reached the day when Louis was supposed to be diagnosed with his sudden illness. I specifically asked a mutual friend, one of his colleagues, to keep an eye on him and inform me immediately if anything happened so I could go care for him. But the whole day passed without any news. According to the previous timeline, by this time, Louis should have already been in the emergency room. Yet now, there was no sign of trouble. Unwilling to give up, I messaged our mutual friend. He quickly sent me a photo of Louis at his workstation. He's perfectly fine, nothing seems wrong. In my previous life, around this time, I had just returned home from work, preparing dinner, when I received a call from the doctor saying Louis had been rushed to the hospital and saved just in time. The primary doctor had given me many instructions. Why was it different this time? Just then, my best friend returned with news about Dr. Charles from the private investigator. It turned out that Dr. Charles and Louis had known each other for a long time. They were close friends since high school and even roommates. They had maintained contact and worked in the same city, meeting up regularly. Dr. Charles knew him well. An idea formed in my mind. No wonder in the previous life, Louis had always hidden his surgical wounds from me. No wonder his parents were so friendly with Dr. Charles. I had thought it was just to understand Louis's condition better. Now it all made sense. There were too many red flags I had ignored out of naivety. They had devised this intricate scheme to deceive me, putting on a long act just to get my 4 million. No, 4 million wasn't enough. They wanted to drain me of everything I had, and when I was no longer useful, Louis would take his true love and leave. The thought filled me with rage. In my previous life, I had died in anguish. In this life, letting him off with just this much was too lenient. My anger wouldn't be assuaged until he truly suffered. I could stir up the public opinion further. The netizens, with their keen investigative skills, had already dug up his entire history. They even found out about his high school girlfriend and their child out of wedlock. This bombshell was confirmed by his ex-girlfriend herself. This revelation caught me off guard. I had never known about it. The netizens also uncovered his mother's social media account, which featured many videos of a young girl who bore a striking resemblance to Lewis. I remembered seeing his mother send him photos of this girl before. He had told me she was his much younger sister, a late addition to the family. I had believed him, understanding why he sent half his salary to his parents every month. It turned out she wasn't his sister but his daughter. This revelation was explosive. With this new scandal, the fading heat of the story reignited, growing even more intense. Lewis, who had recently secured a civil service job, was now facing severe repercussions. Due to his conduct and the negative social impact, he was fired during his probation period. This wasn't just a scandal, it spoke volumes about his character. No reputable company would dare hire him now. Reportedly, his parents, learning about his dismissal, caused a huge commotion at his workplace, bringing along numerous relatives. The scene was chaotic, with security unable to manage the situation, forcing the management to call the police. The entire group was escorted out while hurling curses, each insult nastier than the last. When my friend recounted this to me, I was stunned. What kind of monstrous family was this? Anyone else would have kept a low profile, but they seemed eager to broadcast their disgrace. No wonder they could raise someone like Lewis. It truly proved the saying, like father, like son. I was relieved to have cut ties with him. Otherwise, being entangled with such a family would have been unbearable. Thinking of this, I felt much better. Chapter 7. After the scandal's heat died down, Sarah stopped updating her social media. She was far better off than Lewis. Despite the backlash, she capitalized on the attention, making significant money through online sales and live streaming. For Lewis, being publicly disgraced was perhaps the most painful punishment. His prideful nature couldn't withstand such a downfall, like being pushed into a swamp with no way out. With the matter settled, my best friend and I took a month off to travel around our beautiful country. I finally achieved my dream of seeing the world. My past life had held me back too much, but now I had no more burdens, allowing me to enjoy the wonders of the world. My best friend kept Lewis on her social media, occasionally posting pictures of our travels. Seeing how well I was doing without him would undoubtedly torment him. The happier I was, the more it hurt him. I was sure he was miserable seeing me thrive. As expected, within half a month, Lewis couldn't contain himself. Somehow, he managed to get my new number and contacted me. "Susan, I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I'll only love you from now on. I have nothing left, only you." His voice was choked with sobs, sounding deeply remorseful, but I found his performance disgusting. "Go to hell, you scumbag. Stay away from us." My best friend snapped, grabbing the phone before I could respond. "How dare you say that? Have some shame and get lost." She continued, her insulting skills impressive and satisfying. "Did you hear that? Get lost. I have nothing to do with you." With that, we blocked him. Just hearing his voice felt like contamination. Half a month later, my best friend had to return to work, and I accompanied her. As soon as we got back, a friend informed me that Lewis had been hospitalized. Well, isn't this a pleasant surprise? After losing his job, Lewis couldn't find new employment. No company wanted to hire someone with his scandalous past. Refusing to return home, he ended up working at a construction site. You wouldn't believe it. When I saw him, he was unrecognizable. Dark, thin, lifeless. My friend continued, and I finally heard what I most wanted. Lewis had been hospitalized. Construction work was tough, and Lewis, unaccustomed to physical labor, collapsed after a few days, being rushed to the hospital. If it were just a fainting spell, it wouldn't be a big deal. But doctors found severe health issues, not life-threatening but serious. What illness does he have? I'm not sure, but treatment will cost a lot, potentially millions. Could it be the same illness he faked in my previous life? This time, karma had caught up with him. Justice might be delayed, but never denied. Since he was hospitalized, I decided to Visit. I bought a wreath usually used for funerals and brought his least favorite apples. Seeing him lying weak in bed filled me with glee. Don't get me wrong. I'm here to see if you're dead so I can celebrate. Why do you hate me so much? Lewis struggled to speak. Because you deserve it. Many details of my past life faded, but the deep-seated pain remained. Now, I wanted him to feel the despair I had once felt. I left the hospital without looking back. I didn't want him to die easily, he needed to suffer, to repent for his actions in endless pain. The sun shone brightly outside, roses climbing the white hospital walls. Sunlight bathed my shoulders as I walked away, living my life to the fullest, a life Lewis could no longer enjoy. Chapter 8. Epilogue 1. The next time I heard about Sarah was half a year later. My best friend, an influencer in the entertainment world, had many connections. One day, discussing gossip with colleagues, she asked about Sarah. To her surprise, someone knew. Apparently, Sarah had capitalized on the scandal, making significant money through online sales and live streaming. Many wealthy patrons, attracted to her beauty, showered her with gifts. Soon, she started a relationship with her top supporter. Perhaps to Sarah, money meant more than Lewis. Otherwise, she wouldn't have left him for a rich guy after graduation or abandoned Lewis for her new wealthy patron when things went south. He might never have realized that his true love valued him so little. Half a year later, I met Sarah again. Shopping with my best friend, I saw Sarah, heavily pregnant, looking nothing like her former self. She was in the fruit section, carefully selecting items, budgeting for her life. Wasn't she supposed to have married a rich man? She didn't look well off. She saw me too, her eyes avoiding mine, lacking the former arrogance. She looked miserable, suffering the consequences of her choices. Approaching her, I noticed bruises on her arms and legs. Life must have been tough, especially being pregnant and abused. As you wished, I lost. Sarah said, her voice weak. I never wanted to compete with you. I don't love Lewis. I replied calmly. Though I resented Sarah, my real target was Lewis. I had no intention of pursuing her any further. But life had already punished her enough. I married a man 20 years older, thinking money would solve everything. But he went bankrupt shortly after. Now pregnant, I face his daily drunken abuse. Are you happy seeing my misery? You could have walked away unharmed, but you chose this path. Greed is dangerous, it consumes you. This is your doing, not anyone else's. Having said what I needed, I left with my best friend. All grudges settled, the hatred from my past life now seemed unnecessary. This life, I would live fully and happily. The end.